Hi, my name is Joe Center, and I am making my very first podcast on behalf of my blog, Mr. Center's Wall, .blogspot.com. And I am sitting in my living room at my computer, which is very different from any classroom setting I've ever been in. Those of you who know me, of course, will remember me from classrooms. I'm an English teacher. Those of you who've never seen me before, well, here you go. This is me, and this is how I look at things. Thanks to a young man named Brian, who's probably wondering why in the world I just referred to him as a young man, I am trying out podcasts. I'm interested in doing what I can to keep presenting literature now that I'm no longer an English teacher. And so lately, on the blog, we've been reading from Steinbeck's East of Eden, which is one of my all-time favorite books. And we've been going on it for some time. We're at chapter 8 now, about to start chapter 8. And the first line of chapter 8 goes, "I believe there are monsters born in the world to human parents." This is why we're talking about monsters, because Steinbeck opens up the chapter talking about monsters, and we need to figure out why. Of course, we'll find out soon that Steinbeck is about to introduce a character named CATHY Ames, who may be, as far as I'm concerned, one of the most evil characters in literature, period. She's absolutely horrible. He does an amazing job depicting her, and we know she's going to be pretty terrible when he opens up talking about, objectively initially, monsters. I'm going to go ahead and read the first two paragraphs plus one line. "I believe there are monsters born in the world to human parents. Some you can see, misshapen and horrible, with huge heads or tiny bodies. Some are born with no arms, no legs, some with 3 arms, some with tails or mouths in odd places. They are accidents and no one's fault, as used to be thought. Once they were considered the visible punishments for concealed sins," which actually holds bearing with some of the later stuff that happens in the book. Sins that bear upon the children, sins of the fathers upon the children. So continuing, "And just as there are physical monsters, can there not be mental or psychic monsters born?" So we know where he's going with this. "The face and body may be perfect, but if a twisted gene or a malformed egg can produce physical monsters, may not the same process produce a malformed soul?" Here's the key line. "Monsters are variations from the accepted normal to a greater or a lesser degree." That is Steinbeck's functioning definition of monster. So we're going to go a bit deeper than that. Of course, anytime that I look at learning more about a particular topic, I go to dictionaries. I love dictionaries. I'm a dictionary geek. And my new favorite dictionary is one called Brewer's Dictionary of Phrase and Fable. I highly recommend it. This is a brilliant book, but hardly a dictionary. Mostly because they never have what you're looking for. But the great thing about Brewer's is that they, and this has been in a number of reviews of them, they have a lot of stuff that you're not looking for, which is actually a lot of fun. And I think I accidentally took out a bookmark here, so I should be able to find the stuff anyway. When I looked up monster, of course monster wasn't there, but it referred me to 3 other spots in the book that talk in a roundabout way about monsters, like the bug-eyed monster. The entry is a creature from outer space formerly popular in science fiction, from American slang bug-eyed, having bulging eyes. But getting a little bit closer to the point without going beyond it, like the third entry does, talking about the Loch Ness monster, is the green-eyed monster, which, like I said, is a little bit more pertinent. And that particular definition goes, or entry, is, if I can find it, this. Then the green-eyed monster. So Shakespeare called jealousy. So Shakespeare labeled jealousy the green-eyed monster, and he quotes, or the book quotes Iago from Othello. "O beware, my lord, of jealousy. It is the green-eyed monster which doth mock the meat it feeds on." A greenish complexion was formerly held to be indicative of jealousy, and as all the green-eyed cat family, quote, "mock the meat they feed on," unquote, so jealousy mocks its victim by loving and loathing it at the same time. See also green with envy. So a lot of fun this, but not terribly helpful. What is helpful, however, is the Oxford English Dictionary, which is always helpful, and a long-standing favorite of mine. This is half of my copy of the Oxford English Dictionary, which is ultra-condensed, which means super small text, not fewer words. And the best thing about the the Oxford English Dictionary is its dedication to tracing the etymology or the background of the words, if you haven't already looked at the Oxford English Dictionary. I've got a sort of condensed version of the etymology, which is really very helpful, which I obtained via a beautiful website called onelook.com. Highly recommend it. Great place for finding definitions, but also etymology. Anyway, so the etymology of the word monster starts like this. Circa 1300, quote, malformed animal, creature afflicted with a birth defect. Makes sense. From Old French, monstrer. From Latin, monstrum, we get monster, monstrosity. Omen, portent, sign. From root of monere, warn. See also monitor. That's big. I'll come back to it. Next part of the definition, abnormal or prodigious animals were regarded as signs or omens of impending evil, extended by late 14th century to imaginary animals composed of parts of creatures, the centaur, the griffin, the chimera, the sphinx, so on. Next definition, meaning animal of vast size, is from the 1520s. Next, which is really important to Steinbeck's definition, sense of, quote, person of inhuman cruelty or wickedness, is from the 1500s. And finally, in Old English, the monster Grendel was an aglaika. I apologize to any linguists out there who recognize that my pronunciation of any of these foreign words is absolutely terrible. And aglaika is related to a word aglake, which supposedly, though we're going to look more into this, means calamity, terror, distress, oppression. So I want to look at each of these parts individually and look at how they reflect on our understanding of the word monster, because that's what a definition's for, or a dictionary is for anyway. A dictionary's job, most beautifully indicated by the Oxford English Dictionary, is a representation of the usage of words. It's not a group of people that say this is what a word's supposed to mean. It's a group of people who say this is a word and this is how it's being used here or here or back then or now or whatever, and they compile all that so that we can use it as reference. There are 5 main parts of this etymological breakdown here, and I want to just look briefly at them and give a couple examples of each. The first is the malformed animal, the creature afflicted with a birth defect. Really, if we look at that, that's collecting all of the crazy, bizarre, nasty creatures, monsters from literature and film, a lot of science fiction, a lot of fantasy. Think Lord of the Rings and the monsters there. That's really the easiest place to go. But already we're getting into the monstrare, the monstre, from Latin, the monstrum, the monster, monstrosity. But here it is, the omen, a portent, or a sign. Look at the root of monster. It's the same place where we get monitor, demonstrate, things like that. So it's to show, to warn, something like that. If we go to the next part where it says abnormal or prodigious animals were regarded as signs or omens of impending evil, think Frankenstein's monster. Think of a chimera. If you like Harry Potter, think of that big old black dog, the Grim. Definitely an omen, definitely a monstrous dog. There's something about the word monster which is warning people. If we go to the next section, animal of vast size. Think of the Leviathan or the Kraken or Babe the Blue Ox. The next part, a person of inhuman cruelty or wickedness. And again, say you like popular adolescent fiction, think Voldemort. Or if you're into the Hunger Games recently, President Snow, who certainly is not visibly monstrous at all, is most definitely a monster. But this is where we get into, let's see, I'm going to get ahead of myself here. Going back to the issue of warning, of the portent, the sign, something that's going to tell us that something awful is coming. Combine that with the physical stature issue of monsters, or the ugliness ahead of that, and it makes sense. A monster's physicality is either a portent of its own malice coming, or of something bigger and badder on its way behind it. And along these lines, I can't help but think about the two sides of monster. As I see, the physical monsters on one side that are the obvious ones, but also the indication that's following the psychic monsters, as Steinbeck labels in that third paragraph, which we didn't actually get to, which are more monstrous in spirit. Voldemort, President Snow, Satan, if you want, but also this Cathy Ames in Steinbeck. So what's the big problem with psychic monsters? Which is what Steinbeck calls them in the third paragraph of chapter 8 there that we didn't actually read. The problem with psychic monsters, of course, is that without this physicality of all the other monsters we've looked at, they demonstrate, or if you will, demonstrate, I know that's cheesy, nothing. There's no congenital trait that gives them away as a monster, which to me makes them all the more dangerous. And these are generally the much more manipulative monsters, the ones that control, the ones that reach out and handle the more physically dangerous monsters, or even lesser malicious psychic monsters, monsters of intent, of demeanor, not necessarily of physique. But that gets us to the last definition, from the Old English, which is the language in which we meet Grendel, and the word is aglaika, or aglaik, which supposedly, again, like I said earlier, means calamity, terror, distress, or oppression.